Andy Austin here with the next chapter, Poor Planning from the Rainbow Machine, Tales from a Neurolinguist's Journal. Now this is a very short chapter, it's actually just 2 pages long, and it's a review of Stanley Schachter's work around people with weight issues and some of the observations he had. And if you're somebody who struggles with weight, you have basically you have eating issues, you do want to have a look at Stanley Schachter's work. It is groundbreaking stuff and very, very useful to know. Here's one of the things I do know. The food industry knows that work and is using it against you. Here was my observation in working with people who were morbidly obese. They were the most hypnotizable subjects I ever had. At the point of, I would actually take it to my training courses when I was teaching hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and people would say, who should I start with? I would say, find overweight people. If you want really good hypnotic subjects, your overweight people are the people to go for. Now, they're not hypnotizable because they're overweight. That's not how this works. But I am 100% certain that amongst a portion of the population, there will be a percentage of people who are the most suggestible. They're the most vulnerable to advertising and the hypnotic suggestions that's used in advertising. When I first started out working with people with weight issues, I was looking very much at the behaviors and mindset and psychology of those individuals and trying to find some alignment there. As time went on, I began to have a very, very different point of view. I 100% blame the food industry and the marketing machine that they have. I think the reason there is an obesity epidemic is not the population's fault. The people who overeat are overeating because they are being told to by marketers who know hypnosis better than they do. They also know the vulnerabilities of the human mind and how people are easily influenced. One of the things about food is you can't live without it. Most addictions, most stuff that we overindulge in, we can do without. We don't have to buy endless shoes. We don't have to take heroin. We don't have to consume alcohol to live. But we have to eat. So that is one of the most easily exploitable human traits, because we have to eat, unless you're going to be a breatharian, and I think even they eat too, secretly. And so unless you're going to become a genuine breatharian, you still have to eat, and you still have to expose yourself to the marketing strategies that is employed by the food industry, which is basically the super science culture. Just have a little bit more, have a little bit more. A little while back, when I was trying to lose a bit of weight myself, and I thought, let's eliminate all dietary sugar. And I started to pay attention to what was in ready-made meals, what was in tins, what was in pre-packed food that wasn't a potato dug out of the ground, the raw ingredient stuff. And I was horrified at just how much sugar and stuff is packed into these things. They're low-fat. They're low-fat products, but very, very high sugar, because in order to maintain the high flavouring, they substitute the fat with sugar. So the low-fat products tend to be loaded with sugar. Doesn't help you lose weight. And also looks at the effect on the human biome, your gut, the bacteria in your belly that helps you with stuff, and how much that is damaged by different foodstuffs. So I have this little theory. The food industry wants you to buy more and will happily exploit a large percentage of the population who are vulnerable to their suggestions. And so the work that I now do with weight issues is to give people some sense of immunity, to allow them to be impervious to the hypnotic suggestions that are barraging us everywhere we go. The supermarkets, it's incredible. Next time you're at the fruit and veg counter in the big supermarkets, look up. Look up. Look at the lighting. The lighting changes according to where you are to enhance the colour of the thing that you're in. The aisles have different quality of lighting. Those smells are pumped out. They don't necessarily have a bakery on site, but you smell the fresh bread. It comes out of a can. These are the little tricks. Look at the history of Muzak, the auditory suggestive thing that would actually get people into the right emotional state to sell to them and to get them to buy stuff. I've gone off on a tangent here. Stanley Schachter's work is well worth looking at as to what is it that influences people to eat. And I say the food industry absolutely knows this, and I don't believe it is the individual's responsibility. If it was just one person in the population who was overweight, we could go, yep, it's you, you're the one. But where we get to the point that we talk about the obesity epidemic, the global obesity epidemic, then we have to look at the other possibility, which is this is something that is happening to the population and it's being engineered from somewhere. It's not, the whole population has lived for all this time and suddenly in the last 30 years gone, right, we're going to get fat. We're all going to suddenly lose our brains and overindulge and eat stuff. There's a mechanism that has driven that change. And so the work I do now is about giving people this ability to become more immune to the suggestion of to eat more, to consume more, to consume. So here's the thing. If you are somebody who struggles with your weight, I suspect, in fact I'm very confident, that you're readily hypnotizable. You are somebody who is vulnerable to suggestion, and that a lot of those suggestions are going in and you're not even noticing it. And so one of the key things is to start to become aware of your own vulnerability, your own suggestibility, and as to how you can be persuaded to do stuff like put things in your body. You need to start to control what's going into your body. Oh, it's easier said than done, and that's why we need some extensive really work to do with people. But until we start to tackle the behavior of the food industry and the marketing industry and the way they behave, then I suspect this obesity crisis that we're facing is going to continue, and it will continue to get worse. One of the things I've seen in India, now those who know my background will know I've spent a lot of time in India. I've actually spent several years there now, all in, if we total up all the time. It's virtually my second home. Now I first went to India in 1993, and I've seen the massive changes that have happened both socially, economically, in every possible way within the country. It's a big country, big population. One of the things that's happened there is the adoption of everything that's Western. Basically, if it's American, if it's British, it's going to be good. And so when the fast food chains started to open up, when you had things like Pizza Hut, McDonald's, the other big brands started opening up in India, you had the traditional Indian diet, and you didn't really have that many fat people. You didn't have very many young fat people, that's for sure. And the traditional Indian diet was pretty healthy. Pretty tasty too. It's my preferred intake. My preferred food is Indian food. I virtually live on Indian food. And I cook it all myself from raw ingredients. But now we have the fast food chains opening up. The young are now being sold on this being you're modern, you're hip, you're trendy, you're living the dream, you're something, you're special. And so the kids now migrate away from tradition, and they move towards pizza and burgers and chips. Oh my god, just chips everywhere. And to the point now, it's the fast food chains, the Starbucks, the McDonald's, the all of those other things, the Wimpy's, the pizza, just everywhere. And they now dominate. They dominate the food market. And I have seen the massive change that is beginning to happen in that country. They haven't hit the crisis level yet, but they're starting to. And this isn't because suddenly everyone's lost their minds. It's that they're being sold to. They're being told this is how you advance. This is how you become a someone. This is how you become modern. This is how you're not going to be boring like your parents and your grandparents. You can be something special. Here, have this burger. It's a treat for your children, and you can eat a burger every day. To the point, the last time I was in India, which was actually just before Corona hit, somebody asked me, how often do you go to McDonald's? How often do you go to McDonald's? And I was like, well, how often? Probably about once a year, maybe. Oh, what? You don't eat there for dinner then? They actually think of McDonald's being a restaurant. It's a restaurant. It's where you go for dinner. So the food that is on offer is not something that's the anomaly to your diet. It's the treat. It is a restaurant, and because it's marketed to the population over there as a restaurant, people go there for dinner, and that's dinner. And I don't even think of those foods in those ways. They're a guilty pleasure, maybe once a year, maybe if that. And so this is quite concerning to me when I watch a culture, and it's food culture, being destroyed by this stuff. We've already had it happen, and we've had whole generations grow up underneath this kind of blanket of fast food industry. And we accept it as being normal. We actually accept it in our high streets. We accept it in our little towns and villages when they open up. And that is really concerning to me. But more importantly, we accept the behavior of the food industry that markets their stuff to us to encourage people to eat more and eat more and eat more. And then we have this. It's the fat acceptance movement. So now we have people who are caught in this tractor beam of hypnotic suggestion to eat more. They will have lots of physiological issues. Basically, they're big, and a lot of health issues can come with being big. No matter whichever way we try and cut it, being big will be bad for your health long term. But now we have the social shaming, because the average person blames the obese person for their plight. Well, you shouldn't eat so much, you should eat less. It doesn't work like that. It simply does not work like that. But it's very easy. I understand why people think it does. I mean, I used to think like that. It doesn't work that way. And because we blame those people, now we get into the whole notion of fat shaming. And that doesn't help. I can tell you, it does not help people lose weight if we fat shame them. So now we have people who are caught in the obesity situation, who now seek to protect themselves from the negative stuff of fat shaming. And so we have the fat acceptance movement, which basically says, I will not be shamed by you. Good, you shouldn't be shamed by anybody. Now you're siding with the food industry, because now we have people who are the victims siding with the perpetrators and saying it's okay to be fat and eat more. And the perpetrators of that, oh yeah, let's fund the fat acceptance movement, because we want more people to accept the fact you can be fat, because it doesn't matter, there should be no social and cultural consequence upon the people who are obese. Whoa! So this is essentially exploit a portion of the population, make them a victim of your stuff, and then brainwash them to become your greatest supporters. That's what's happening in the world, and I think this is something we need to do something about.